Welcome to WYCD Wicked, that stands for What You Can Do. And this is Friday Peace Talks. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm looking forward to what y'all have to look at. I think we've already got some suggestions on the forum. I have pulled those into another forum so I can separate them if they end up not being from today. I've got some stuff to start us off with that I've been champing at the bit to look at. And I'd love to start with Mr. D.L. Hughley. I'm tickled by the fact that he's still in the game. Dawned on Me says, hey, finally caught alive. Delighted to have you, Dawned on Me. Thank you so much for joining. Wicked Foxy Dragon saying hi. Hello there. Great time to remind folks about the Friday Peace Talk rules. Rule number 1, say hi to everybody when they show up. Rule number 2, only have well-intentioned, well-reasoned debates. No random accusations. Rule number 3, no name-calling. And rule number 4 is, of course, when I break the rules, call me on it. Because I will, because we're all human. I mean, I'm just barely, but I do technically qualify. Let's jump into some of the stuff I wanted to look at, because I brought 2 clips to the Peace Talks, and boy, I like both of them. But I want to start with D.L. Hughley because he's talking about something that has vexed me, man, for a good long time. It's vexed me, and that is the fact that a not insignificant chunk of Americans believe in things that are counter to what Republicans are pushing for, and yet they continue to vote Republican. I don't get it, and I'm truly hoping that we have one day a right-leaning voter who will wander onto this stream, see what we're talking about, and will explain to me how it is you can believe in the kind of rules that are necessary for us to live together and yet still vote Republican. I truly don't understand. Here's D.L. Hughley being more eloquent about it than I.
So, around 70% of Americans believe that there needs to be some restrictions on guns. As a matter of fact, overwhelmingly, most Americans, up in the 90%, believe that there should be stronger background checks. 70% of Americans believe that the assault weapon should be banned. Most Americans, by and large, agree that a woman should have the right to choose and have autonomy over her body. They believe that abortion should be legal. They also believe that the anti-abortion pill should be available. The Plan B pill should be available. They believe that people should have the right to marry. Overwhelmingly, they believe that. So if it is that on the most dividing issues in our time, there's a clear majority of people who believe opposite of the way we're being governed. So if somebody is doing things opposite of the way that the population, the majority of the population, the bulk of the population wanted, that is not democracy. That is ruling by fiat. I will tell you what it is. You can tell me all you want, what you don't like, and I will do what I want. And it's particularly interesting and galling that the Supreme Court that has made a lot of these decisions were selected by a man, were nominated by a man who wasn't even the most popularly elected official presidential candidate during his time. So a man who wasn't elected by most of the people is picking judges that most people in America don't agree with. We can't have our streets, these guns, weapons off our streets because these elected officials and judges have decided that they don't want it that way. That it is more important to appeal to the people who donate to them than to their very constituents. It is more important for them to do what they want as opposed to hearing the voices of dissent. And you saw all too clearly last week where men and women were punished for just having a voice of dissent. So what is the purpose of us telling you what we want and you doing what you feel like doing? And you have the temerity to call that democracy. How is it that someone could sit on the Intelligence Committee and laud someone stealing the nation's secrets? You see how confusing this is?
I tell myself nearly every clip that I'm just going to play the whole clip and not interrupt. Then I remember that I have to for algorithm reasons. And also, there's just little things that stick out. Everything he just listed, to me, sounds like the sort of thing, and I'm guessing here, hey, Republicans, correct me if I'm wrong. I truly want to know. Wicked audience, give me your best suggestions. The invitation's been extended. We can't be accused of talking behind people's back if we invited them to the conversation. So give me your theories. Here's my theory for the gun reform thing. My theory is it's the same as universal health care is for Democrats, where most, God help us, most of our candidates, as in most people that get to run as Democrats, which real talk, I'm sure is going to include a lot of former Republicans real soon. They don't support universal health care. They don't support it in the form of Medicare for all. No form of universal health care do they support. But they end up getting votes from progressives who, generally speaking, do support universal health care. All the time they get votes from progressives. And the reason being, the progressives understand that it's not feasible. Like, the setup doesn't exist in government right now to get universal health care. By the way, we get all blue House, Senate, and White House in 24. It is extraordinarily likely. that we can get universal health care. It won't happen. It won't just magically happen if the power is there. But we have never existed in a time, at least in my lifetime, where the power was there and the consciousness of what is needed was there. Closest we've come was 2020. But I still think the American people weren't quite prepared. They still were doing that thing where they were trying to say, oh, we need strong Republicans. My point being, it's not worth protesting a candidate for us, Democrats. I am amongst the Democratic voters. It's not practical for us to disqualify a candidate from getting our vote over something like this. But on your side, it's totally possible. You could absolutely make your representative do things like sign on with Democrats for background checks, like federally requiring stricter background checks or getting rid of gun show laws. Do you really care so much about being able to buy a gun at a gun show that day instead of looking at a model, having it then later sent to you or shipped to a participating gun store near you where you can pick it up? I mean, do you really care that much about that you're willing to let kids die? I don't think so. I don't think that's true. I just think you haven't thought about it. I think you're caught up in politics, and I think you're of the belief that to encourage your politician to do anything outside of lockstep with the rest of the party will somehow weaken them. If that is the case, and again, I'm addressing a straw man here because, y'all, I invited you. I don't see you. I see you coming and running your mouth during the rest of the streams. Rarely do I see Republicans in the peace talks when we're actually going to put our, ideals where our mouths are and look at pieces of media. Fact check them. Maybe that's why. It's a little scary. But I don't see y'all pushing your politicians to do something that could get signed tomorrow. I don't see you doing that. And you're in a position where you could, and I want you to understand that. If we worked together, we could get some reasonable gun reform passed. Your politicians are the ones holding this up. When we compare it, for example, to universal health care, the point is, my politicians are not the ones holding that up. The people I vote for often, unfortunately, don't support universal health care. But it's not like it would matter if they did, because Republicans will prevent it from passing. So we have debates about other things. But your politicians are the ones that are preventing gun reform. So why do you not act? Why do you, Republican voters, not pressure your politicians to start supporting reasonable gun reform? I don't understand it.
You have somebody, Marjorie Taylor Greene, sits on the Intelligence Committee, which is an oxymoron anyway. But the fact that when the young man was caught stealing this nation's secrets, she lauded him. How is it that things are going on, things are happening that most of the American people do not want? We don't want women's right to be mitigated like that. We don't want this proliferation of guns in our streets. We don't want people giving away the nation's secrets. But they can. 60% of people believe that Donald Trump committed a crime and that what is happening to him is right. But the people who seem to be in power have a different estimation, and they're doing what they want. That very much is not democracy. Your job is to do the will of the people, not to tell them what they want. Our mothers do, and fathers should do that. Don't do as I do, do as I say. How do you yell freedom when the very basic things that you ask your election officials to do, they cannot? Freedom and fiat both start with an F, but they are most definitely not the same thing. That's a little note from the GED section. We got the Jazz Report coming up in 15 minutes. It's the D.L. Hughley Show.
That little all right at the end, I like that. Man got it off his chest. Yeah. The question remains the same. Republicans, you're the ones. Republican voters, you're the ones holding this up. Your politicians are just terrified of you. And you know what? I commend you for that. Good. It's truly, I'm looking at, and I'm looking at the wildest of right-wingers. I'm looking at the people I probably politically disagree with most as an inspiration, truly, for how to take control of a party. I don't agree with how y'all conduct yourselves most of the time. But credit where it's due, MAGA folks, y'all took over that party. I admire it so much. I'm looking at how lefties can learn from that and genuinely make the Democratic Party finally an actually left organization. But there remains this disconnect, this thing I just don't understand about you who vote for the right wing. Whether you're traditional conservative, you're grand old party, or you're the MAGA folks. I don't think I've ever had a conversation with a gun owner who respected other gun owners who were irresponsible with their guns. I've never, I live in Michigan, man. There's it's one of those things where coyotes are a concern, depending on where you live. There's some horror show stories from farm life, or if you're a northerner, you'll definitely get this: the apple orchards. Sometimes you need a gun. The point is, our society is set up that way. So this isn't a crusade against the ownership of guns. But it's certainly a crusade against the irresponsible ownership of guns. How many of these shootings could have been avoided by some rather simple legislation? Some simple requirements for owning a gun. Some acknowledgement that this is a machine which is dangerous to own if you are, a delusional coward, like the guy that shot a kid. Or the other guy that shot another kid. Which one am I talking about? The doorbell or the basketball? Oh, wait, there was a third one? Come on. You can't look at these people and think, yes, that person should be able to have a device which kills people with a twitch of the finger. Of course not. Of course not. Get control of your party in the ways that matter. I realize that y'all have been, in my opinion, duped into chasing after trans folks. Like they were kicking in your door with high heels and coming for your kids. Come on. An actual danger to your kids, as in the number one killer of children in America, are the guns in the hands of the irresponsible crazies. And maybe you should use some of that influence that you've worked really, really hard to accumulate. Maybe you should use some of that to help. Just a thought. Look at what the Wicked community has to say. Dean Oldfield, good to see you. Dawned on Me said, it's like Congress is an episode of the reality show Housewives. Pretty disgusting. Yeah. Mars Falcon says they are just following orders. Yeah, that's the feeling that I get. I feel like this is a modern problem, as a matter of fact. So, I mean, not just an American problem. I see this cropping up more and more all around the world. But people are eager not to take personal responsibility for things. And it goes as far as to say they're eager not to assign blame unfairly. But I'm of the belief where if a situation is bad enough, such as the shootings in America constantly, or the fact that we just allowed Russia to invade Ukraine in 2014, the collective we, the world, the species, if a situation's bad enough, we have to be eager to take responsibility. We should be scrambling to take responsibility. I often frame it negatively because I think we need to be kicked in the butt a little bit and encouraged to do so, but it can be framed positively as well. We collectively can affect these problems by simply choosing to give a damn and accepting the fact that it is ultimately in our hands. And taking personal responsibility, in addition to demanding that others take responsibility, allows you to have an open conversation about it. For example, Republicans, when I tell you that the lack of gun reform is your fault, that's true. It is your fault. It's also my fault. What did I do last week about this? Aside from this show, talking about my personal life, not much. I guess I wrote a couple of emails. Maybe I could have done more. I'll tell you this, there has been nothing legislatively to stop the next tragedy. It's just a fact. And I live here in this time. So it is my responsibility as well. We're gonna carry that weight. But I'll tell you, man, I am at least going to vote for people in a year. I'm going to vote for people that would, if given the opportunity, do something to help these kids out. And I would like you to either, no matter who you are, no matter how you've traditionally voted, either consider doing that, consider changing how you vote if you have voted in the past for people that support giving mass murder weapons to crazies, or use the fact that you are the person that the people preventing reasonable gun reform from happening rely on for their vote. Use that to contact those people and change the way they vote. Crazy, I know. Wicked Foxy Dragon, I have emailed my rep and senator every day for almost a month. Wicked Citizen of the Day, Wicked Foxy Dragon. I emailed my Congress every day about gun reform. That's what I'm talking about. Hell yes. Hell yes. That is excellent. If we all do that, in fact, you got a promise from your old pal Jake. Every day, I'm going to email Alyssa Slotkin, who is my representative. I'm going to email her about this now. Every single day. Thank you. Wireless Mike, good to see you. Hi, Wicked Peeps. He says, sorry I'm late. You are not forgiven, you son of a bitch. I'm kidding. Hell yeah. Dawned on Me said, that's not seeming to work. I'm also doing that. I'm delighted you've said that. Here's the thing. I have heard gun reform talked about much, much more this particular cycle than I have after the previous shootings. Now, look, in large part, that's due to representatives doing big performative things like the Justins and Gloria in Tennessee. Absolutely. But why are they doing that? Because they know their constituents care. I'm sure they personally care as well. But that pressure, it works, man. And remember what we have said since the beginning of this show. Consistent pressure is what does it. Yeah, from time to time we make progress with a big spike. We have a series of marches and it draws a lot of media attention. But it's the consistent pressure that ends up working. One day with the streets clogged up doesn't do it. It's the 30 news reports around the country that get people talking about that subject. That's what does it. So yes, keep emailing them. It does work. It helps give us those jabs, which set us up to be in the position to get the knockout blow. We can 100% make this happen, but keep up that pressure. Patrick Kibido says, Stars Wild Game 3, puck drops in about 20 minutes. I will be scarce tonight. Rock on, Wicked community. Well, thank you very much for giving us the view, and I presume the like. Thank you. I very much appreciate it. And who am I rooting for here? Stars or Wild? Let me know, because I'm going to root for who you want. Dean Oldfield says, we need to become their worst nightmare. Hound them incessantly. That's right, Dean. That's what I'm talking about. Yes, sir. Mars Falcon says, Slotkin, is that the CIA lady, or am I confusing her for other CIA operatives in our Congress? Oh, yeah, it's the CIA lady. I am sure I'm her least favorite constituent, but I am nonetheless one of her constituents. All right, Wicked Foxy calls it, your old pal Jake's rooting for Wild. I have signed every petition I can find, she says. Hell yes, that's what I'm talking about. We did a show a little while back where we featured a clip from the Majority Report talking about how effective it is. With the interview we did recently, we also talked about how effective it is. 5 or 6 emails can really affect what a representative does. 10 emails, they consider that a flood. 30 emails, especially if you can get a couple of different people sending them. Oh. No, we are in terms of contacting your representative, this is like having the opportunity to buy Apple stock in the 90s. Nobody's doing it in the early 90s. Nobody's doing it right now. But it's underappreciated. Or at the very least, the people who are doing it right now are not people on the left, certainly, and they're sending messages that representatives are used to seeing. So now that we have a new culture developing of people saying, "Hey, you know what? I'm a voter who gives a damn about gun reform," or "I'm a voter who thinks somebody should have a right to bodily autonomy. Government can't decide what you do with your body." That person is going to have a hell of a lot of sway. All right, I got another piece here I wanted to show y'all. It is... Oh, I shouldn't have stopped that recording. Hey, there we go. It's from a gentleman by the name of Chris Hayes on MSNBC. Let's have a look. Because Hayes is talking about the echo chamber. I think that's a relevant thing to discuss in this day and age, particularly given the news this week regarding Fox and the Dominion lawsuit. Let's check it out. You know, one day I am going to get a smooth transition down. Like, one day it'll happen. I'm excited for it. I'm looking forward to that day. I'll tell you what.
Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. Fox News has settled the defamation suit brought against them by Dominion Voting Systems. But The underlying problem, and it's a deep and profound one, is not going anywhere. And now Fox has to pay $787 million for a bind they got themselves into. It's a bind that the whole country is in a certain way. But what I'm talking about is the problem, which is that tens of millions of our fellow citizens live in such a constrained informational environment and are so distrusting of any alternative sources of information, they operate in what is basically an entirely separate informational sphere. I think the best way to understand this is just to look at some data, right? The spectrum of sources, for instance, that the median Republican primary voter consumes versus the median Democratic voter. So Democrats consume and trust a wide variety of sources. The New York Times, the Washington Post, this network, a broad spectrum of the mainstream media, the progressive media, across the board. The spectrum of what Republicans consume is way, way smaller. But first and foremost, they trust Fox News. That is their dominant source, along with just a few others like Talk Radio and OAN. It's a very, very small universe of ideologically partisan aligned sources of information. And here's the thing. That didn't happen by accident.
He's right. He's totally right. But I want to point out something further. Let's go back to that chart, because some producer did the work already for me. I would like to see a graph or a chart or whatever the hell that shows the bias of these various organizations. But this will do for our purposes, I guess, because there's a difference between bias and honesty. If you're on the right wing, I think you look at Fox and you look at the Wall Street Journal, One American News, and then you look at everything else and you think, well, I know which ones have I take that back. I don't think MAGA folks realize the Wall Street Journal has a distinctly right-leaning bias, but whatever. You look at the places that you know that you acknowledge have a right-leaning bias, and you think, yeah, they probably lie for the benefit of right-wingers. I get told that all the time. But MSNBC has a left-leaning bias. And I would say that's mostly true, but they also have a corporate-leaning bias. But sure. Let's say they have a left and yet also slightly corporate-leaning bias. Or, hey, the Majority Report. They're not news, they're more of a talk show, but still, the Majority Report. They have a left-leaning bias. I think the right-wingers look at that and think, so they tell lies to favor the left. But there's a massive, massive difference in how these places operate. It's not just that it's an echo chamber, it's that within that echo chamber, lies are told. The danger that people were talking about with biases before is that the whole story wouldn't be told, the complete story. But one thing that I never hear people address, in the same breath at least, as the conversation about bias, is what is then done in the name of that bias. Because on the right, what you have is not just not the complete story being told, as this Fox Dominion suit demonstrated in crystal clear terms. The right lies. I'll grant that the left might not tell the complete story. I happen to think the reporting on left-leaning, the more left you go, the more accurate the reporting is, because from everything I've seen, reality has a left-leaning bias. But, it's a very, I'll acknowledge that it could be possible that the complete story is not being told on the left. But there's a huge difference between the complete story not being told and a straight-up lie. And that is the problem with the right-wing echo chamber. I do take probably too much time making sure that this doesn't become an echo chamber. But the problem is what is happening within that. They are using the fact that they know if you're a right-leaning person, except for moments like this, they've got you in that chamber. And they use that to load you up with lies. And they use the fact that you see organizations with a different bias disagreeing with those lies, and the knowledge that you will chalk that up to just being what it looks like when two different news organizations have a different bias. But that's not the issue. The issue is now within that echo chamber, disinformation is spread, and it's a real, real problem. So when Chris Hayes is here talking about the number of sources you're getting information from, that's the core of the problem. Because with your narrowed down echo chamber of sources, they're just passing around lies. Donald Trump says what the lie is going to be. The news tries to make it seem as realistic as possible. Everybody on the center and the left and just who's reporting the facts says, hey, Donald Trump just lied to you. And then Fox says, they hate Trump. And the right wing keeps falling for it. You're in danger of the history books calling you gullible, right wingers. It's not your old pal Jake saying it. But yeah, it is actually. I'm sorry. It's this will be a discussion, in my belief, that will be held by future generations. Why did we? Because guess what? They're not going to, future generations won't make a distinction about who was who in this generation when talking about this broadly. They're going to say, why did we, the people alive on Earth right now, fall for this? And the reason they won't make that distinction is they're going to ask why guys like me didn't talk to folks like you, if you're a right-winger in the audience, about this. So here we are. And please, tell me your side. Tell me this if you're a right-winger listening. And if you're not, if you're a regular watcher of the stream, ask this, please, to right-wingers in your life. You know the difference between bias and lies. Because there is a difference. And a bias can inform whether or not you lie. But it is a different conversation. And the fact is, as admitted in court multiple times, Fox lies.
Universe of ideologically partisan aligned sources of information. And here's the thing. That didn't happen by accident. That is the product of a successful effort by Fox News and others. A lot of other conservatives who have waged a decades-long war, going back to the 1960s, on the mainstream media and any other trusted American institutions. The late Rush Limbaugh enshrined the battle lines in what has become a famous or infamous monologue on what he called the four corners of deceit.
So we have now the four corners of deceit and the two universes in which we live, the universe of lies, the universe of reality, and the four corners of deceit: government, academia, science, and media. Those institutions are now corrupt and exist by virtue of deceit.
Government, academia, science, the media. Corrupt, exist by virtue of deceit. This is what Limbaugh and the conservative movement taught people, hammered into their heads after day after day, month after month, year after year, that they, the Rush Limbaughs of the world, the Fox News of the world, are the sole source of reality. They exist in the universe of reality, and everyone else is in the universe of lies.
True, and I'm going to let him keep going because this is a tangent, but I do just want to say we should probably right now, like soon, right wing and left wing, we should get together on this, make a law that says you cannot use the sound of somebody's voice without their permission in something you make money off of. I just got reminded randomly that we have AI now that can literally do this with everybody. And unless they're a public figure, like a politician, just like we have likeness rights with folks, we should probably protect that. So heads up, if you're a right-winger that happens to be watching this, first of all, kudos for taking the tongue lashing, and chime in the comments. But this hasn't been politicized yet. I'm sure the people you don't like will find a way to get on the side of this that you disagree with. So don't side with the bots. Don't side in this case with the AI. Okay.
And you can't trust anyone but them, the Rush Limbaughs and the Fox Newses. You can't trust the government officials or government statistics. You can't trust scholars. You can't trust scientists or the mainstream media reporters. And of course, knowledge, what we know about the world, is inescapably predicated on trust. We just can't verify firsthand the overwhelming majority of things we know about the world. I wasn't there for the randomized control trials for the vaccine, for instance, right? So what we do is we use trust as a means of coming to know about the world. For example, if a reporter for the New York Times says, I have seen this atrocity happening on the ground in Ukraine, and I've talked to folks that saw it, firsthand witnesses, they told me about it, I can't go check for myself, right? My disposition is to trust that it's true, and not completely, right? I would look for other verification, see if other outlets report similar findings as a kind of verification. We've seen that with atrocities and massacres that have happened in Ukraine. But trust is the foundation here. And those trust relationships with credible media sources, researchers, again, government, bureaucratic, statistical entities, they end up being the way that we form a lot of knowledge of the world. The American right has made it their mission to sever each of those trust relationships, to cut their base off from any other institution that produces knowledge. Now, this has created this incredibly dangerous situation, which conservatives really are severed from any connection, again, to the main institutions of knowledge production in our society. Think about it. Think of what the four corners of deceit: government, academia, science, and the media. Because they are severed from those institutions, these tens of millions of folks can then be sort of captured, dominated entirely by Fox News and its conservative allies. This is an incredibly lucrative thing. They've got customers who only come to them. Rush Limbaugh, who died a very, 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 very wealthy man, understood this. But here's the thing. Disconnecting their audience from other possible sources of authority has also left Fox vulnerable. They're vulnerable to...
I do have to say, for the lefties watching, this is one of the reasons I love Chris Hayes. Framing is such a problem in politics. We will hear framing from people all the time that I think is in good faith. I think it's meant well, but it makes it seem like their plan is the only way to do things, or the way things have gone. Strangely, I see this from political organizers all the time. The way things have gone is the only way they can go, and we have to accept the negatives provided to us by the narrative. Chris Hayes does a good job of reframing things and bringing us back to just the facts without any built-up narrative assumptions, like MAGA people will only ever support X, Y, or Z. It's a more difficult thing to do what he's doing right now and point out the fact that not all these things that are viewed as strengths are strengths in every context. And I'm going to let him do this segment again, but just go into it knowing that he has earned the utmost respect from your old pal Jake on this one.
Conservative allies. This is an incredibly lucrative thing. They've got customers who only come to them. Rush Limbaugh, who died a very, 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 very wealthy man, understood this. But here's the thing. Disconnecting their audience from other possible sources of authority has also left Fox vulnerable. They're vulnerable to someone else who's even more of a grandiose liar, an even more effective demagogue coming along and winning over their audience's trust. And this is precisely what happened with the phenomenon of Donald Trump. Now remember, in the beginning, when he first got in the 2016 race, Fox and the Republican establishment wanted Trump out.
I am really trying to understand how conservatives can look at Donald Trump's record which he himself self-identifies more as a Democrat than as a conservative or a Republican, and say, that's our guy.
He's insulted and bullied his way to the top of the polls.
We saw an angry, defiant, fuming, threatening bully.
You've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals.
I don't think I've ever heard such a stream of disconnected ideas since I quit psychiatry 30 years ago.
Of course, that didn't work. The base decided they trusted Trump more than they trusted Fox. And again, this is what's key here. Fox themselves have produced a situation in which they were helpless to do anything, right? They created an audience that was completely unwilling to believe anyone else who would say, yes, he's a sexist and a crook and he's dangerous. And we saw the same thing play out again after the 2020 election. Fox wanted to, in the main, institutionally, rely on their trust relationship with their audience and tell their viewers the basic truth that Joe Biden won the election. It wasn't rigged. And that what Donald Trump did was, as Rupert Murdoch actually wrote in an email, quote, pretty much a crime. I agree, Rupert. So Fox tried that for a couple of weeks after the election. The viewers started to turn away because they no longer trusted Fox. They trusted Donald Trump, who was telling them the election was stolen. Fox News CEO Suzanne Scott understood this. She laid it out plainly in another email made public, again, thanks to the Dominion lawsuit. Quote, we have damaged their trust and belief in us. Yes, it was basically a trust showdown, one that Fox couldn't win unless they adopted Trump's line, which they did. Because here's the thing. They couldn't go to their base and tell them, hey, look, don't just listen to us. Look at every other independent assessment of the election. Look at the official numbers provided by government. Look at the courts, another part of the government. Look at the reporting in the media, in the New York Times, and the Washington Post, and the LA Times, and NPR, and on and on and on. They couldn't do any of that because they are the ones who told their audience not to believe any of those people, because those people were, in Rush Limbaugh's words, the four corners of deceit. So Fox was left on its own, desperate to win back their audience, and so they decided to peddle Donald Trump's lies. And this is still a very much live issue because, listen to me here, the exact same problem is happening now, again, in the 2024 Republican primary. When Donald Trump attacks his likely opponent, Ron DeSantis, claiming, for example, that he is, for a Republican, an average governor who got 1.2 million less votes in Florida than me, DeSantis can't really hit back. So in that example, right, Trump fails to mention that he won Florida by less than 4 points. DeSantis swept the state with a margin of nearly 20 points. I mean, he only got fewer votes because it was a midterm, not a presidential. But again, who's going to say that? Who's going to inject that context? The Republican primary audience is so cut off from reality, those facts can't get through. And where can Ron DeSantis turn to appeal to? Like a Washington Post fact check? Not going to work. There's no referee. Fox News and the conservative movement destroyed the conditions for that. So,
just want to chime in real quick to say thank you for the book recommendation. We jump over here, right, John? I believe that was Lauren St. Laurent. Lauren St. Laurent, I believe that was you, but thank you for the recommendation. I'm absolutely, yes, it was. Lauren St. Laurent says, oh, by the way, try to check out the book Democracy Rules by Jan Werner Muller. Get your library to order it so other people can learn it too. I'm going to listen to that. I got to tell you, the Wicked community has recommended 2 books to me. And both of them have been like some of the best, I'd say reading, but as you can see, I am a child. I prefer to have my stories read to me. But some of the best I've had the pleasure of enjoying. So thank you for that.
So now it's just a head-to-head battle of who you like more, who you believe, who you trust more. They trust Donald Trump. And until Rupert Murdoch and Suzanne Scott and the rest of the Republican Party and the political operatives, Ron DeSantis, the people working on his campaign, unless they figure out how to dismantle the situation they themselves built, Fox News and the rest of the right will always lose to Donald Trump or anyone else who can out-demagogue him.
So, we had a Wicked viewer. I didn't see the name, but thank you for dropping this media bias chart. Let's look at it. I got to tell you right off the bat, I think it's out of date. I think this came out in 22 if I saw it. Yeah, it came out in 22. Yeah. So, CNN has sprinted to the point where they are now more in the, I would say they are center right at this point. They've sprinted to the right, CNN. I find it odd that even in 22, the New York Times or CNN or Daily Beast, well, no, Daily Beast, I guess, fine. But CNN or the New York Times, I guess, opinion, I see what they did there. The New Yorker, even the New York Times opinion, whatever, and CNN, I feel, do not belong in the far left there. But nonetheless, this is a pretty good chart. Forbes in the center? Really? I definitely would shift most of this to the right, about 1 degree. That said, I pretty much agree with those that are in the on the right side of the chart there. Useful. That's a useful thing. If you want to check out the link, it's in the Friday Peace Talks sheet, and I'll try to remember to put that in the VOD later, but I'll fail. So use the link in the live stream. So, echo chambers. If you are in one, you don't have to utterly change your habits. What you have to do is poke your head out now and then. Intentionally try to listen to people that disagree with you. And if you don't have the patience or the time for that, then at the very minimum, when you hear somebody disagree with something that you're claiming, ask them why they disagree with it and go look at the people that convinced them to disagree with you. You don't have to do it every single time. For example, if Tucker Carlson is consistently proven wrong, as in literally every clip I have played of Tucker Carlson on this show, I've had to pause like 50 times because every sentence he says requires a correction. You don't have to say, well, maybe he was right this time. You can say, well, give me a trusted news source. Give me a serious news source. But make the effort to disprove yourself and be eager to find out that you are wrong. There's no better way to operate in the current media environment. Try to prove yourself wrong as often as you can, and look at the people who are angry with you, who are yelling at you, as assistants. Look at them as the water in which you are testing your ship. If she's seaworthy, your ideas can navigate the rough seas of misinformation and all of that, then it'll stand up. And if it's not, it ought to sink anyway. Better that it sinks now close to shore before you really commit to those ideas. Give it some thought, y'all. Let's see what the Wicked community has to say. Patrick Thibodeau, playoff hockey time, friends. I will see if you guys are still hanging out after first period. All right, brother. Good luck to your chosen side. Mars Falcon, I help spot what is really going on in the chat room, a comment section, and in the real world. Knowing the rhetorical tricks, being able to spot them fast can help massively. Wireless Mike 73. Interesting. Let me go up to what y'all are... you're talking about Innuendo Studios? The alt-right playbook. Ooh. All right, I'll have a look at that. Oh, mercy me. Yeah, I'm going to... See, what I shouldn't do is read bottom up. Mars Falcon says, I want a Dr. Dre DMX Dr. Seuss hybrid AI to pump out gravelly voiced bars over sick beats with rhymes about breakfast foods, Patrick Thibodeau. Yeah! Be rad as hell. Yeah, I don't think that we should ban AI or do any crazy stuff like that. I do think, though, we should take steps good and early to make certain things taboo so that, number one, people trying to profit off it can't utterly take control over how the government views it, so there doesn't become an AI lobby. But also, more importantly, so that we just establish cultural ways in which we immediately can recognize what is and isn't AI. Because you think it's been hard deciphering misinformation from fact when it's just humans lying to you. We're a couple of years away from stories being generated and disseminated whole cloth without a human pressing the buttons. And I think at a minimum, if something's made with AI, it should require a disclaimer, just saying, like, just so you know, this isn't these aren't real people. One of my favorite things to watch on YouTube right now, conversely, are the presidents playing games together, like video games. And it's Obama, Biden, and Trump in a theoretical chat room, just hanging out, like, on Discord and having a lark together. It's very funny. But the premise of it is that you understand that these aren't actually the presidents hanging out. It's comical because it sounds like the presidents. The AI does their voice and I believe generates the script. But it you understand that it's not real. Conversely, remember when who is it? Key from Key and Peele, I think, did that Obama deepfake. Looked just like him because it was a deepfake. Sounded just like him because it was Key. A lot of people might have believed that it was real if there wasn't that part at the end where the face melts into Key's and it goes, hey, quick warning, this could be bad. So I think we should take reasonable steps so that you don't have to be a software genius to understand when you are seeing something fake. It's as simple as that. Ooh, Wicked Foxy Dragon. You have one of the most interesting lives I've ever seen. I do AI training and review. I have to check my work with an AI detector, and my writing always comes back AI generated. Oh, no. Yeah, that Turing test is going to become easier and easier to pass for our robot friends. Nobody look up Roku's Basilisk, for God's sake. Yeah, it's I do truly love sci-fi because I think it prepares us culturally for conversations we need to have. Like, if you want shorthand for we should be responsible with technology, be like, look, we don't want Skynet happening here. Everybody gets it. Generally speaking, everybody understands what's going on. We all saw Schwarzenegger running around with that kid on the bike. Yeah. We know what's up. Definitely big fan of sci-fi for that reason. Well, the man has stepped out to watch a hockey game, but Patrick Thibodeau did give us a suggestion that I have to look at. I saw this a little bit earlier, just a little bit. But I didn't truly get a chance to listen to what these folks were talking about. Apparently, and this will come as a surprise to absolutely no one who has paid attention to what Republicans do. Apparently, these cats are planning on stealing the 2024 election. They're going to take a whack at it. It's almost as though they tried to steal the 2020 election and haven't been punished for it yet. Almost, huh? Let's have a look, and it's going to take me a moment to set this up.
I think that we can fix a few things in North Carolina because I think that we can fix a few things in North Carolina because I think we now have a legislature controlled by the Republicans. If we can persuade the new Republican member to vote with us. But these are statutory changes that we could get done in North Carolina to protect against any of this private money. Because I promise you, Stacey Abrams has been in North Carolina, and we need to make sure that that money is not flowing into Mecklenburg, Durham, and Wake counties. So we need to be looking at what are these college campus locations and polling. What is this young people effort that they do? They basically put the polling place next to the student dorms, so they just have to roll out of bed, vote, and go back to bed. And we need to build strong election integrity task forces in those counties. Virginia, we have a great task force at every county in Virginia, and we have a great statewide coalition. The governor just signed a bill yesterday that does away with signatures on absentee ballot applications and ballots, and now it has to be the last 4 digits of the Social Security number and a birth year. And we need to make sure that there's transparency and people are watching and verifying. That makes Virginia back in play, frankly, to be able to have some authentication. And again, having first day in-person voting campaigns. Wisconsin is a big problem because of the polling locations on college campuses. There are 501c3s. Their goal for the Supreme Court race was to turn out 240,000 college students in that Supreme Court race. And we don't have anything like that, and we need to figure out how to do that and how to combat that. So, yes.
Yeah, if we do not control the State House as the governor.
So, the thing that concerns me most is the focus on trying to get college kids not to vote, it sounds like. But let me hear this question.
Aren't we just out of luck?
No, I don't think so. Because in the states where we can make changes in the law, like North Carolina, I hope that we will be able to plug some vulnerabilities there. But most of these it's just taking we're kind of stuck with the hold hand. And we'll see what happens in Virginia this fall. If the Republicans are able to hold the state house and reclaim the state senate, then maybe it's possible to get rid of 45 days of early voting in Virginia.
So once again, I mean, this isn't a surprise to me. This is just the exact thing I would expect to hear at a gathering of Republicans. How can we make it harder for Americans' votes to be counted? How can we make it so that people who won't vote for us can't vote? Not how can we sway those people. Not how can we get more people on our side out there, although there was some talk of that. But the main focus is how, at least of this question, how can we make it so that we interfere with the democratic process? And I think if you support this party, you should be ashamed. You should be ashamed. That's un-American. And I think you must understand that is un-American. Look at this. They want to get rid of early voting. They want to make it more difficult to vote. You need to genuinely search your heart and ask yourself why you support people that can't win a fair fight. Why is that the side you've chosen to support?
45 days. Do you know how hard it is to have observers be able to watch for that long a period? I mean, there are several things that they can do. They can get rid of same-day registration, but they can't do that now because...
So just to be clear, you don't need an observer watching for 45 days. That's insane. That is absolutely insane. It's early voting. You don't have somebody watching the drop box. Somebody could walk up to the drop box and put in a bunch of votes in some states, because that's their job, is to go collect votes from voters and deposit them where they're supposed to be. The reason for this is that the security happens before the form is filled out and after the form is received, no matter how it's received. Signatures are checked against each other. The fact that citizen number whatever voted is compared to whether or not they are registered to vote. If that citizen comes up as having voted twice, that gets flagged. It's a non-existent problem that they're pretending to try to solve in order to accomplish their real task, which they have made crystal clear through January 6th, through the consent decree they had to agree to because they were trying to intimidate voters in the 80s. Through their whole damn history, they're not interested in the opinion of the American people, which is a problem for democracy.
The Democrats still hold the state Senate. But I just remind everybody that having people involved, engaged, and overseeing all of that in 2021 in Virginia made all the difference, even though it was still controlled by Democrats in every office.
This was audio obtained by Lauren Windsor at The Undercurrent, and it exposes top Republican legal strategist Cleta Mitchell, a longtime Republican lawyer and fundraiser who worked with Trump to overturn the 2020 election results during an RNC donor retreat this past weekend. According to the Washington Post, Mitchell's presentation consisted of more than 50 slides and was titled "A Level Playing Field for 2024," because apparently the way to quote-unquote level the playing field is by preventing people who might vote for Democrats from voting at all. Yep. Sounds level to me. Now, in fairness, Mitchell did say that the organization, the Election Integrity Network, quote, is not about winning campaigns. She simply said the nation's electoral systems must be safe for any candidate other than a leftist to have a chance to win in 2024. See, it's not about helping Republicans win, it's simply ensuring that a Democrat loses.
I mean, you should be ashamed. If you're still voting Republican, you should feel shame over this. And this is not name calling. Ask the Wicked community. Ask the folks that are in the chat right now. I'm handing out shame cards left and right. I'm happy to jump on the left with both feet with a tisking. I'll pull the disappointed uncle routine 100% of these shows until we're not, sending our kids to battle zones to learn geography or whatever the hell. But per Wicked tradition, how he looks, Brian Tyler Cohen, that adorable little otter, how he looks is how I feel. I'm disappointed. We are supposed to be better than that. Americans are supposed to give a damn about democracy. We're wrestling with France over who gets the title as the leader of democracy, modern democracy. And they're kicking our butts these days because Macron just got an egg on his head. And to me, if you don't know what I'm talking about, I probably should have pulled that clip. But to me, your country's leader getting egged That's a sign of a healthy democracy. Whereas the opposition talking about, as Wicked Foxy Dragon points out, without fear of the law, just talking about how they can suppress the vote. That's not a sign of a healthy democracy. That's a sign of a democracy that has a not insignificant group of people in it that don't love democracy. And they don't love America, because that's what America is all about.
In a two-party system. Now, according to the Washington Post, the Republican Party hasn't officially endorsed this plan, but they have worked right alongside her since Trump left office, which is likely why she was presenting to a group of high-level Republican donors at the RNC. And that's further underscored by the fact that the RNC spokesman released a statement saying, quote, "As the RNC continues to strengthen our election integrity program, we are thankful for leaders like Cleta Mitchell, who do important work for the Republican ecosystem. Our guests in Nashville were grateful for her to travel to the event and share her efforts." I should note, too, that Mitchell was literally on the call between Trump and Brad Raffensperger, for which he is now embroiled in a lawsuit in full.
Just want to simultaneously call out a violation of the rules and stress to the wicked mods that Jake isn't always to be listened to. I'm not above the rules because I'm going to say them wrong sometimes. Dawned on Me says, if you're not subscribed to Brian Tyler Cohen, you're missing the best show on YouTube. No offense, Jake. We're partial agreement. I will say it's among the best on YouTube. But let me just check. Let me fact check this real quick. Smoothest cat on the internet. Still your old pal, Jake. Facts only here. WYCD, best show on the internet. I'm teasing, for the record.
County, Georgia. At one point, Trump literally acknowledged her by name, saying, "All we have to do, Cleta, is find 11,000 plus votes." That's who's advising the Republicans right now. The same person who was helping Trump pressure state officials to conjure up imaginary votes for the express purpose of stealing an election. But sure, this isn't about winning campaigns. It's just about restoring election integrity. Got it. Notice, too, how when they wail about election integrity having purportedly vanished, there's never any proof. In fact, Republicans have made voter suppression the cornerstone of their campaign for years, all the while having failed to point to a single instance of widespread voter fraud. They just blindly suggest that allowing college IDs or no IDs is some guarantee of election fraud. But when given the opportunity to actually prove it, they've never once come close. In fact, they had more than 60 court cases after the 2020 election, and
we're not just skipping by this because it's old news. We really do need to deal with this. One thing that's been frustrating me lately is that we have to memorize all of these scandals. Remember this. Per each scumbag, you only need to memorize one thing. If a scientist, if a doctor walked in to the room where you're going to see him, and you're covered in sweat, and you're shaking, and you've got your femur broken in half and part of it sticking out of your skin. They look at you and they listen to your heartbeat and they say, well, this clearly is a fever. Here's some Tylenol. Go home, sleep it off. You already know. You don't need that doctor's opinion further. You don't need to keep going to them and see, well, maybe they'll be right about this cancer diagnosis. Maybe they'll be right about the sniffle. No, they've already demonstrated that they are not worth listening to. Similarly, why are we still? I mean, I understand why we're talking about Donald Trump in a criminal sense, but in terms of you Republicans voting for him, what the hell? 60 court cases. There's no further conversation needed as to whether or not the election was stolen. It wasn't. Donald Trump had 60 bites at the apple, and he failed. Utterly failed. Why? Because what he was saying wasn't true. Don't just let that go. Every time MAGA Republicans come at me with that nonsense about Joe Biden not being the real president. 60 court cases. That's the only answer for him. 60 court cases say otherwise. If Donald Trump, Rudy Giuliani, the whole clown crew, withdrawn, apologies, that whole crew, they had a chance to demonstrate in court whether or not the election was stolen. And they couldn't because it wasn't, because they're liars. And that is not name-calling. That is a statement of fact. They lied about it. They lied to you. Doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. Donald Trump, Rudy Giuliani, Eastman, that whole crew, they lied to you. And the two main factions in America are just really debating over whether or not Donald Trump did lie about that. I think we're going to see in court, as in criminal court, some discussion of this. But we don't need to wait to see how that judge rules, because we already know that he lied. Because he had the opportunity to prove what he was saying in court, and he could not do it. He didn't have the goods. Still doesn't have the goods. Never had them. They never existed. Donald Trump lied. He is a liar. Accept that in your heart, no matter who you are, because that's the facts.
Guess how many cases turned up proof of widespread voter fraud? You guessed it, 0. 0. Like, I want to make sure that everyone heard me. Literally none. But it's not actually about fraud, and we all know that it's not actually about fraud. It's about preventing people from voting who are more likely to vote for Democrats. I mean, this isn't rocket science. These schemes are cooked up by far-right Republican operatives whose sole goal, despite their stated objections, is to ensure that Republicans win. And they know that, given the obvious political bend from a growing faction of Gen Z voters, the more likely those people are to vote, the more likely Republicans are to lose. Which is why Republicans are currently targeting on-campus voting in a number of states, including New Hampshire, Idaho, Texas, Arizona, Georgia, Nevada, Virginia, and Wisconsin. Republicans are also fighting against pre-registration of students, where 17-year-olds are able to register in advance of their 18th birthday so that once they do turn 18, they'll be eligible to vote without delay. But while Republicans are waging these fights, Democrats are pushing back. Here's Democratic super lawyer Mark Elias during a recent interview that I did with him.
We are challenging all new laws. So if a Republican state passes a voter suppression law, they get sued. Idaho passed a law targeting students. The state of Idaho saw a 66% increase in young voter participation in 2022. And so Republicans came in, passed a law targeting college students. We immediately sued. Ohio came in and passed a massive omnibus voter suppression law. We sued. Florida, in an effort to copycat some other states and disenfranchising young voters, we sued. We've sued Arizona. So that's kind of like one range. Then, of course, we have the cases that are still going on from the last round of voter suppression. Georgia, SB 202, Florida, SB 1, which we won, is on appeal in the 11th Circuit. Texas, that big case, that big law that the legislators walked out on, then came back in and passed. We're still litigating that case. A couple of cases in Idaho. We won a case in Arkansas. It's up on the Court of Appeals. We are litigating Kansas. So those are kind of like the omnibus laws. Then there are a series of cases that we're litigating that are really aimed, they're more rifle shot. They're aimed at preventing sort of friction points that Republican legislatures put in place in order to make it harder for particular communities to vote, Black, brown, and young voters. And, those states range from Wisconsin to Arizona and the like. We are fighting Republican lawsuits. Republicans file a lot of litigation now to literally try to make voting harder. We're in Pennsylvania fighting Republicans. We're in Arizona fighting Republicans, in Wisconsin fighting Republicans, in North Carolina fighting Republicans.
You can watch that full interview on the interviews playlist on my YouTube channel. But what's especially interesting about that is that these Republicans are going to all these lengths to prevent people from voting, as opposed to just, making their platform at least mildly palatable for people. Imagine knowing that your political agenda is so toxic, so unpopular, and your willingness to adapt so non-existent that your only move here is to just try and prevent massive swaths of the electorate from casting their ballot. That's how committed they are to tax cuts for millionaires and billionaires and pretending climate change doesn't exist and coddling fossil fuel companies and kowtowing to the gun lobby. The GOP is a party of extremists, and they cannot divorce themselves from their draconian policy because the only thing that party stands for is their draconian policy. So their only option here is voter suppression. I'm sorry, but what a sad, desperate, pathetic excuse for a political party. So at this point, we don't even have to guess what the GOP strategy is because they are quite literally saying it out loud. They know their agenda is so unpopular and backwards that the only strategy here for them is to prevent people from exercising their right to vote them out of office. So my advice for young people is to pay attention to what they're trying to take away from you, because if you didn't think that your vote was powerful before, they've made it abundantly clear now. Before you go, I need your help. I'm right on the cusp of hitting 2 million subscribers, so please help me grow this channel so the progressive media ecosystem grows by hitting the subscribe button right here on the screen. I also started...
Damn it, he also started a Spanish-speaking YouTube channel. It's probably a good idea to go over and subscribe to that just to give him the boost in numbers, but 2 million, good God almighty. I'm struggling right hell. What? That doesn't make any sense. I'm struggling like hell to get to the to 10K mark. Christ. I'm trying to catch up to Raw News and Politics. Good Lord. 2 million. But he's not wrong. He's it's going to be good to have some voices that are as big as Alex Jones is on the right, on the left. So if you're a lefty, you should definitely subscribe to this stuff because it helps the greater cause. Have a look at what the Wicked community has to say. Mars Falcon says, I'll talk about whatever and will never pretend to be an expert on things I know nothing about. You throw out a topic and I will contribute what I can in good faith. Yeah, I think that's the correct attitude to have. You don't have to be an expert to have an opinion. In fact, I think it's... I don't know how to phrase this eloquently or even concisely, but I'm going to take a whack at it, and forgive me if it's nonsense in the coming out of my mouth, because it's starting as a feeling. But I think there is as much value in finding out what somebody who has a non-expert level of information about a topic earnestly believes about a topic. And the reason for that is even if they turn out to be wrong by their own measure in like a month, you have the benefit of seeing what their thought processes were like, and therefore understanding the voter, understanding the society a lot better. Mars Falcon says, machete ready. Fair enough. Mars Falcon also says it snowballs at a certain point. Jake, hang tough, brother. Yeah, I'm quite sure that this channel has already gotten to a point where it is going to be a positive force. In fact, you all have made me feel justified in trying to do this. As you've said, writing those emails. We had a Wisconsin voter saying, I voted for Judge Janet. Would they have done it without this channel? Yeah, probably. But it was another voice in the chorus asking folks to get out there and do things. And I think it's possible that this channel will succeed as a money-making venture, sure. But as to whether or not I'm happy that it exists or has ever existed, hell yes. This has been a trip. Mars Falcon, my goal is always to find out where a person is coming from. That's how I phrase what you just said, Jake. Really good, really well put. I represent where I am coming from as clear as I can. Excellent, yeah. Dean Oldfield says, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, or something like that. Yeah, absolutely. And, I have a goose step joke, which I'm going to hold on to till Salty Saturday. Ooh, hoo, hoo. Lawrence St. Laurent says, oh, by the way, would y'all be interested in some workshopping sessions, focusing on one specific topic during one stream or sharing ideas? Yeah. And that, you know what? That brings me into something I wanted to talk about in this stream. And yeah, Wireless Mike pointing out Lauren's suggestion in the chat. Should we do a stream that focuses on like problem solving, on workshopping sessions? Yes. I think that could be really fun, a really energy building thing, and incredibly useful. And leads into this. It's been kind of a weird streaming week, and it's going to get weirder. And we're going to do a couple new kinds of show ideas. I still want to do just the basic thing of what you guys have seen so far. Play a clip from somebody that I think has a really good take or a really interesting point, discuss it a little bit with y'all, and then tell you what you can do about it. But we're big enough now. Every time this stream goes live, y'all are in the chat. There's an active community here. We should use that. We should take advantage of that. I'll leave y'all with this. There was this story on NPR that I've not been able to get out of my head for more than a decade. I was back when I was making sandwiches in Ann Arbor. And driving to work, I heard this story, and it never left my head. It's an anecdote about guessing how much a cow weighs. And they studied. No, excuse me. I take this back. This one was the jelly beans in a jar story. They did this multiple times. But jelly beans in a jar. They took experts and had them guess, like people that worked at these kinds of booths, and had them guess how many jelly beans were in the jar. And then they saw how many people in just a random crowd could accurately guess how many jelly beans were in the jar. And nobody got even close. There was tons way too high, tons way too low. But the median guess was damn close, no matter where they ran this experiment. And then they repeated it with guessing the weight of a cow. And they had like farmers and cattle ranchers, etc., guess the weight of a cow. And again, even the experts were farther away from the actual weight of a cow than the median of everybody asked, including non-experts. And tying in with what we've been saying, I think there's a superpower in working together. And I think we're going to come up with some of the best strategies that the left will be adopting. In fact, that the left, that the right, that Americans will be adopting by doing exactly what Lawrence St. Laurent is suggesting, workshopping together. This week, I have been trying to work on how we're going to be more interactive, because you're just right. The time is here, and we should do a specialized show, I think, once a week for it. Just like there's Friday Peace Talks. Well, we should do another specialized show. I don't know when it's going to be. I don't know what format it's going to take. I don't know how we're going to roll it out. I am going to be experimenting a whole lot next week. So get ready for some of the roughest streams possible. But hopefully we'll have fun along the way. Since we're here, since it's the Friday Peace Talks, there's just one more thing. I'm going to Columbo you guys. Here's a pitch I want to clip specifically for right-wingers. I've been trying to get my feelings down, trying to, trying to condense this pitch down to a way I think they'll understand and appreciate. the right-wingers. So if we got right-wingers watching this or the VOD later, give this some thought. Look at this right now. All right, right-wingers, here's the deal. I despise all those folks right there. And I really wish you would too, right-wingers. I wish you would start hating these people along with me and treating them like crap, treating them like employees that haven't done what you want. Because guess what? Your life expectancy has shrunk. Your children, based on all measurable statistics, are going to live worse lives than you will, and you lived worse lives than your parents. See these folks over here? I hate them too. I understand that you also hate these folks over here. And that's something I like about you. What I propose is this. We agree on some things. There are things such as giving massive tax breaks to the rich, constantly bailing out the rich but not doing anything for small business owners, that everybody up there, except for your old pal Jake, keeps supporting. I don't propose that you vote for those guys. I certainly don't suggest that I or anybody who tends to vote like me should vote for those guys. No. What I propose is that the right wing works with us to pull a wildly unexpected dark horse voting block that actually gets things done. I know, it seems impossible. We're supposed to be fighting each other. That's because these motherfuckers have built their entire careers off the people that have not even a tenth of the money they do, burning all their energy fighting each other. I'm not going to waste your time or mine by pretending we're going to be aligned on most issues. But the fact is, we are aligned on some issues. The fact is, a lot of you MAGA folks want to get big money out of politics. Basically, all you MAGA folks seem to despise George Soros as much as I despise the Koch brothers. What if neither of these billionaire punks got a say in what our politicians do? What if? Well, if I pressure my guys and you pressure your guys, and we get, on the left, just as good at bullying our asshole politicians as you guys have gotten on the right, you know you can trust me because I just genuinely said yous guys. There's every man as you get. If we can do that, and we can all bully our politicians in the same direction, we might be able to get some changes made in the United States of America that, for once, everybody agrees is good. Give it some thought. That's why there's a word for an alliance as opposed to just having the one word friendship. We don't got to be friends. You don't have to like me. But we can acknowledge that we do have areas of mutual interest and that none of these motherfuckers are good people. They are, in fact, our employees. We should treat them like that. And if you're willing to talk seriously, we might be able to make them do some things that we have been told they won't do. But who told us? Something to think about. Well, normally we do longer Friday Peace Talks, but in the interest of trying to harass the True North Eager Beaver podcast into giving me a tutorial on how I'm supposed to be using Restream.io, I'm going to end her a little bit early today. I did see, though, there's other suggestions in the Friday Peace Talks sheet. Thank you. I'm going to check those out. I will likely do separate videos on those later. In the meantime, this has been WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. My name's Jake. Yeah, I do streams at 9 p.m. Eastern time on the weekends, 8 p.m. weekdays. I'll put it on the website. Somebody already told me to do that. I should have done what they said.